Product Review, Rest Easy Bed, by Theo, Plesha. Forgive me for oversharing in this product review, but as you'll see, in my line of work, context matters. I inherited a small fourth-story condo off of Carolina Beach. The place is a fond childhood memory. Lots of long weekends on the beach at Grandma June's. It was a significant upgrade to my old near-campus apartment with the beer-soaked grit in the floors. It came as a complete surprise from June, my father's mother. Her and I weren't particularly close, but she left a note saying she felt sorry for people my age. I could remember how happy I was playing there in those summers. After the sermons, the tears, and the dirt settled, I think my dad and my uncle sort of resent me for this, but it's not like they were walking away empty-handed or anything. My girlfriend, Sydney, and I moved in during the winter, and we both agreed we needed to refurnish the place. Out with the plastic-covered couches and wooden box television with the rabbit ears, in with the reclining love seat and the 65-inch smart screen. We hung heavy curtains around the windows as the winter view was less than inspiring. We both have a lot going on in our lives. Our jobs are hectic, our families are chaotic, and both of us suffer from chronic conditions that keep any kind of persistent peace just out of reach. She suffers from severe allergies, to the point of having to go out strapped with multiple EpiPens in the event of a sudden anaphylactic reaction. I, on the other hand, suffer from insomnia that makes the entire world feel like our ocean view window at times. Two shades of gunmetal meeting at an ill-defined point before spinning into snowy static, the kind the old TV played before we replaced it. It's the kind of thing that sinks into you. You get immersed, inundated with perpetual weariness, like a dull ache on your side, or tinnitus you can't scoop out of your ears until one day it lifts, and you're relieved, but you know the timer has reset. Sydney worked at a bakery specializing in foods and drinks for people with allergies and other dietary requirements. Aside from her hectic mornings, she claimed to love the job because it made her feel relatively safe, and she got to meet people and serve people with similar afflictions as herself. She often said it was rewarding, and kept her close to a slice of the hippy-dippy community she had mostly parted ways with because of her worsening allergies to some of the practices they advocated. I worked for an independent research firm specializing on cataloging and categorizing, quote, material losses, unquote, captured by open-source Intel posters and private satellite images in recent and ongoing civil and international conflicts. The phrase material losses is one of those cringe euphemisms for death and destruction. Sure, sometimes it's black pockmarks on an open field, or some communications dome leveled into the concrete, but most of the time we're talking about burned-out husks of shattered military vehicles and cratered buildings not fully evacuated, photographed in one way or another with the burned remains of personal belongings, pets, and even occupants visible. It wasn't about good guys or bad guys. They all ended up looking the same. It was about abstractly documenting and measuring the costs of modern civil and state warfare. I've been working in this field for the better part of 10 years and found that on the surface, I have a very high tolerance for this work. Some might say a special set of skills. But in the back of my head, it's less something I choke down and more something like I keep from shooting up from my esophagus, out of my mouth, and through my brain like a bullet. I can't say I find my work rewarding in the same sense Sydney did hers. I found it was something I could do well, took an interest in. And aside from sometimes the overwhelming sheer volume of materials that flooded us from major incident to major incident, I found it fine. The eerie excitement of checking the news, knowing I'd be especially busy on Monday when a bus blew up or an apartment building intercepted a cruise missile, made me oddly at peace with the possibility of Sydney suddenly having a life-threatening allergic reaction out of the blue. A reaction which I'd have to react to with calm, presence, and purpose, and poise. That being said, I suppose there were hard moments. But in the easy moments we had, we were not exactly the most active couple. We dozed off together in front of the TV, falling into each other on the couch. A regular Jack and Queen of Hearts, leaning together at the foundation of a house of cards. That's when we started watching it. It was on that smart screen. Between a YouTube video or two, we started seeing ads for it. I'm sure you've seen the one.
Would you listen to that poor guy? Can't sleep to save his life. Or his wife. Or girlfriend. Whomever. Hi, I'm Vic Clinton. You might remember me from other product awareness messages like the Onionizer and the Bidet Buddy. But today I want to tell you about the Rest Easy bed. The smart bed. The last bed you'll ever buy.
A random man in his boxers and a t-shirt, the guy snoring and rustling, randomly appears in the studio.
Oh no! It's like one of those nightmares.
Ha! Hardly a nightmare. The Rest Easy bed is a dream come true. Why don't you come on over here and take a seat on this bed with me? Sounds like you're having a hard time sleeping there, Mr.
John Ferris. And yes, I do have a hard time sleeping.
Pray tell, why is that?
Oh, I'm overwhelmed with my job and life, and all I want to do is have a bed smart enough to cool me when I'm too warm, warm me when I'm too cold, be firm when I need support, lighten up when I need to sink in.
And who doesn't? Did you know you'll spend a third of your life in bed sleeping, and a little more not sleeping, if you catch my drift? But in all seriousness, that's about 26 years, 9,500 days, or about 228,000 hours.
228,000 hours? I feel like I'm wasting the best years of my life in my old bed.
Well, that's because you are. So why don't you make the change to the Rest Easy bed, made from cutting-edge materials which absorb your thermal and kinetic energy while you sleep, and uses space-age memory mediums and fine wires to adjust your bed settings without you barely having to touch a button. This bed is so advanced it practically reads your mind and comforts you before you even realize you need comforting.
Magically, another person appears on the bed with them.
Wow, that does sound like a dream, but I have specific medical needs for my blood pressure issues. Does the Rest Easy bed help with those?
Does the whale pee in the sea? Hi, what's your name?
My name is Nick Harley, and not only am I overweight and uncomfortable in my bed, my doctor is deadly serious about my risk for blood pooling and clotting.
Of course, the Rest Easy bed is deadly serious too. It can get soft around or firm up where you need support, including slanting or elevation to your blood pressure and blood flow, or pooling issues at bay. It's even used by athletes worldwide to elevate injuries to the legs and arms. And even if you're in the best shape of your life, not to worry! The Rest Easy bed system can support up to 2,500 pounds of weight.
The commercial turned to angelic background music, while on-screen text stated the features alongside 1990s-era computer-animated simulations of dead-eyed mannequins enjoying its various features.
Cuddle on a cloud, sleep on the sea, nap in nirvana, drift in a dream.
Vic magically manifested yet a third person, this time a woman in lingerie. Her upper section and bottom section covered in censorship bars appeared on the bed, with a pile of tissues in hand. At first she looked stunned, then she started to sneeze.
Oh my god! How did I get here? Who are you people? Where am I?
Ha! Hello, my dear. And pray tell, what is your name?
Cindy Quinn, who the hell are you?
I'm Vic Clinton, and what nighttime ailments bring you here?
Cindy looks increasingly disturbed.
Nighttime allergies. I bet you clean it all day and night and vacuum your mattress and wash your bedding every week, but nothing keeps the dust mites away. Well, the Easy Rest bed system is not only 100% hypoallergenic and cleans itself, it also helps keep you and your bedding clean as well.
That's amazing.
I know. Cuddle on a cloud, sleep on the sea, nap in nirvana, drift in a dream. The Easy Rest bed system is the last bed you'll sleep on. Call now, toll free, or visit our website.
When you're an insomniac, and in love, or just plain need a new mattress, a new bed, sometimes those repeated commercials start to work with you. Work on you. Its hypoallergenic qualities alone were also a huge selling point for us. Sydney tried to talk me out of it, or at least tried to talk me down from thinking this would be a miracle cure for my insomnia.
Sleeping is one of the ways you voluntarily become incredibly vulnerable. The bed isn't a fortress or a trench or a bunker, which it seems like you need sometimes to go to sleep.
We need a new bed. Isn't it weird sleeping on June's, even if it is my own mattress?
Well, when you say it like that, but seriously, I'm pretty sure your insomnia and stuff comes from your job, imprinting those fears, this vulnerability of being blown up in the middle of the night.
I think they come from you getting yourself up at 4 a.m. and rocking the box spring like it's some kind of Looney Tunes trampoline. I think this will fix that.
Oh, I see. Is this the I should quit conversation again?
I mean, if it is, didn't you start it this time?
Well, how are we going to finish it?
By figuring out how much this thing costs, it will be good for you, it will be good for me, and probably our neighbors.
I said, winking to her. The phone line was not active. But the website was functional, if not dated. They promised a 90-day trial period, no charge, and free returns if not satisfied. Just pay for the shipping. At the end of the trial, my credit card would be charged. It was a hefty penny, but it was something we could save for, plus they had a 0% interest financing option. Our one-bedroom condo isn't huge, but we wouldn't settle for anything less than a king-sized unit. We both took off the afternoon of a random Tuesday to take the delivery. It arrived without fanfare. We didn't even hear the truck. But then, boom. It was lying along its long side in the courtyard. We stepped out to examine and decide how to bring it up. Brought a tape measure that I used to check the width of the stairwell, knowing full well it would not fit inside the cramped elevator. I knew it would be a tight fit, but it turned out to be an eye-wateringly close tight fit. I contemplated getting my friend Dan out here to help us, since not only would it be large, but also heavy, with all that it was promised to have. As I stared down the unit, I realized maybe the bed frame and mattress were inseparable, making this even more difficult, maybe even impossible. I sighed as I reminded myself I would only be out the $100 delivery if that were the case. I took a moment to realize the entire bed was encased in a thin, sealed, black metal container with odd bumps and geometric protrusions along the top and sides, which stood out against the eggshell white plaster and wood of the building's walls. Beside a partially faded stamp of a large letter U and a crudely graphed human eye, the tin was marked with two stickers. One that said, size equals king, this side up, and no knives, pull tab open. With that, I put my pocket knife away and proceeded to peel open my new bed. for what looked like a cross between a stealth fighter and a tuna can. I was amazed as the packing was less than the size of a full bed, and yet it said it was king-sized. Inside the kit was an unremarkable steel 3-piece bed frame. Under that was another well-sealed pouch, nearly flush with the interior of the tin. It was bright light and stated, "Pull open all 4 corners when laid in bed frame." Seemed simple enough to us as Sydney grabbed part of the wrapped up frame and I the other 2, took the elevator back up, set up the frame in the cleared area of our bedroom, then proceeded to go back down for the bed component. I lifted the pouch out of the tin, expecting it immediately to expand forcefully, or at least flop open, in an awkward way that could literally sweep us off our feet. To my surprise, the bed was stiff. It didn't flop. It was incredibly lightweight. I probably could have scaled the steps myself with it, but Sydney, equally impressed, insisted on helping me so she could handle the strange material. We carefully set the pouch between the 4 corners of the bed frame. Sydney ripped open the left side, and I the right side, as we both stepped out and away from the frame, expecting the combo mattress and box spring to fill the gap of the king-sized steel. We looked upon the exposed corners of the item, a deep dark blue with a bright yellow marbled into it. We were befuddled when nothing happened.
Is it like one of those foams that expands over a few hours?
Sydney wondered aloud. I looked around for a cord to plug into the wall. After shouting abracadabra and making the sign of the cross over it for good measure, we both took to the kitchen to check the website for any more specifics on how to make the bed actually bed.
Maybe we'd have to feed it after midnight to get it to work.
The website offered nothing. I was about to call their support line in hopes it was actually active this time when Sydney called me back down the hallway. Together we waded through the threshold to find our brand new, beautiful bed, fully inflated, or expanded, or whatever you might call it, perfectly fit to the raised corners and slats outlining the frame. 2 small remote controls with 3 functions had emerged from the package. The yellow interior had settled to the bottom and turned firm, but the dark blue parts had risen to the top. And aside from a little static electricity buildup, it was pliable. It seemed to react as I pressed and kneaded, and then gave the material a little punch. It seemed to absorb the blow without rippling, a disruptive wave to either side, which was a major selling point, as both Sydney's mornings and my own nighttime ups and downs sometimes disturbed the other's fragile slumber. Sydney hopped on the bed, crossed her legs and bounced on it a bit. Then she shot me this look and said,
I think this will work out just fine.
Now, you'd expect me to cut away at this point in the story and be coy about what transpired next, but I can assure you that after figuring out what sheets, blankets, and pillows we wanted on there, we proceeded to Christian the new bed by eating some leftover pizza and taking a much earned and desired nap together, on top of the covers, if you must know. I had been hovering around, heading into a full-fledged insomnia episode, and I wasn't sure how I was going to avoid it. Maybe it was just taking the day off and spending it with Sydney. Maybe it really was the bed. I didn't know at the time, but I experienced a deep, cleansing, almost purging sense of sleep and restfulness that I had not experienced since I was in my early teens. The only thing that was disappointing was that the remote controls were a little slow to respond, but I looked that up on the website. Because there was no wall or battery power, it took time to build up a charge to change the settings. Still, I knew I had 89 more days to settle, but my mind looped the "shut up and take my money" Futurama meme in the theater in my head. Sydney, on the other hand, I woke up next to her, clutching her childhood stuffed bear, Brownie. She was sobbing, or at least pretty restless, lying on her back with her eyes tearing slightly. I rolled over and wrapped my arm partway around her stomach, where she was holding the bear tightly, and then I cupped my hand over hers.
You okay?
Yeah, I don't know. I really started thinking about and missing Dad.
Sydney's father, Ralph, died about 4 months ago. Brownie was something of a host for his memory of her, It occurred to me that that we were both mourners, and yet when Grandma died, it seemed to overshadow her loss, and how I still needed to be strong for both of us, and perhaps I wasn't. I knew it. I wasn't because I wanted to talk about losing Grandma June with her. It was just kind of numb in the moment. The best thing I could do was say nothing and grip her tighter, but eventually she whimpered out.
How are you doing with June? I can't imagine that living here now has done too badly or too great for you either.
I'm okay.
I blinked, and then I blinked inside my head, knowing with some kind of satisfaction that at least she wasn't obliterated by some robot in the sky. I didn't add the part that didn't seem to be too reassuring to Sydney. I squeezed every part of her gently, but reassuringly, from her shoulders to her arms to her sides and her glutes and then down to her thighs. I repeated this for a secondary purpose.
Hey, where's the pouch?
Well, I put it on the counter.
Okay.
The pouch in question was a custom-made EpiPen holster that could be camouflaged to almost any material she was wearing from day to day, either inside or outside of it. Something that I gave her. Something to let her know that I was always gonna be there for her in the worst moments. Because I was good like that, right?
I wear it. I have it. Trust me.
I trust you.
I love you.
I love you too.
A few weeks passed with the new bed. We made it our own, both as individuals and as a couple. She had Brownie, a door on her side, nestled among the pillows, while I bought myself a new nightstand and a white sound machine to sit next to on my side. After a bout of vivid and emotional nightmares about grief and loss, Sydney seemed to start enjoying the bed as much as I had been. I had been progressively sleeping better, longer, and with fewer sweating incidents. Every workday felt vibrant. Every weekend felt like a 3-day weekend. Something about the bed was helping me, even if I couldn't pin it down exactly. But then, suddenly things started to get really weird around the place. We were cooking together one night, and suddenly there was this terrible burning odor wafting through the place. It wasn't coming from the oven or any of the burners. It wasn't coming from any of our food. We propped open the windows, wondering if it wasn't coming from outside. But it also wouldn't leave through the windows either. It wasn't coming from the hallway or any other unit in the building. It was this permeating stench, like a cross between discharged fireworks and rotting fish. And almost as soon as it started, it dissipated, as it carried in and off by forces unknown, unseen. That was the first of several strange, overpowering smells that went around over that week. Sydney and I grew more and more divergent on what the smells could be, what they actually smelled like. She gagged on burning hair and I sniffed bubblegum. She smelled smoky scotch and I smelled lavender. Eventually I searched around for a bottle of Grandma June's perfume because of the vague resemblance. It was the only common denominator in all the olfactory experiences between us. But that wasn't it either. And then out of nowhere there was this blast of seafood past its prime. This was both reassuring and concerning at the same time, as we did live off the coast. Maybe something had died just out of sight, wafting in occasionally on that beach, but also, Sydney was very allergic to certain seafood, and even the smell could be a trigger. One day I opted to work from home, a few days, actually in a row, to upgrade the weather stripping around the windows and carefully search the entire place for any concealed compartments or false books or anything else where my grandmother could have left a questionable bottle of perfume or something else. How and why it would have suddenly broken open was another question entirely, but one problem at a time. That day I stayed home. There was a serious drone attack off the coast of North Africa targeting a large fishing vessel. This wasn't too out of the ordinary, but between molding putty around window cracks and tapping floorboards, I was doing a workup of the company. associated companies impacted by the ship set ablaze. The cursory search revealed economic damages limited to a handful of Middle Eastern and Mediterranean seafood interests, but one name stuck out. The company UC. U-S-E-A. It sounded so familiar, so I pulled up some images of its logo and it hit me. It matched the weird stamp with the letter U and the human eye on the lid of the tin the mattress had come in. Big question was, what the hell was a mattress company doing with a seafood company 2 continents away? Suddenly, there was a bright light behind me. My ears tweaked and then popped, like I was on a jet. I could still hear, but my ears, my jaw, and the side of my face felt oddly wet and ached like I had spent the night locked in a pointy vice. I had no idea what happened. Aside from transpiring behind me down the hallway towards the bedroom, I could not really tell where the flash came from, nor would it cause my ears to pop. An easy explanation would be a storm rolling in, but the sky was just gray and stiff, like a cinder block. I'll admit here that the flash and the ears popping sent me to a very uneasy place. The building was mostly deserted for the season already. Most other people were off doing their day jobs. The feeling of being alone would be comforting after that, because I had this unimaginable sinking feeling like someone was close to me, watching me. It prompted me to turn all the lights on. It made me feel uneasy, turning my back to the rest of the condo while I fixed new insulation around the windows. That uneasiness set the stage for a fight, as I botched the dinner on the night Sydney would have to close and open early the next morning. Though the weird smells subsided for the night, our tiff over our respective meal duties climaxed with a frantic search for Brownie. That goddamn stuffed animal might as well have just been possessed by Seth MacFarlane and stormed out while I wasn't looking, because the damn thing was nowhere to be found.
You were home all day and suddenly it's gone?
Yes, I was, and I was doing 4 things at once. None of them were in here.
You got rid of him, didn't you?
Why the hell would I do that? I know you love him. I know he reminds you of...
That's just it. I've been dwelling on him too much. Isn't that what you said?
I did not say that. I said that its presence is making me reflect more sadly on my own recent loss. And I think that it's made it harder for you to...
Yeah, it was BS when you said it then, and it's BS now. How the hell does living in your grandma's place, basically a mausoleum enshrined to her, not make you feel the same way?
I don't know. I mean, you know it makes me feel bad.
No, you don't feel anything about death and loss because you're practically the lead producer of a global snuff film. How can you feel anything about anything?
Hey, that's not fair. You know that job sometimes gets under my skin, and I do feel...
Well, then quit! Quit your shit job and try being a normal person with feelings about death and someone who can sleep regularly.
All right, look. We are not doing this again. I didn't do anything to Brownie, and what matters is how I feel about you. How we feel about each other.
Quit!
Fine. Tomorrow I'll quit. I assume you'll be going 60 hours a week at the bakery. Maybe pick up a shift or 2 down at the bar where they throw those peanuts on the ground and in your face while I find something else to make up the difference. Health insurance alone...
That's not funny. Jesus Christ!
Okay, I'm sorry about the peanut thing, but what's going on with me isn't funny either.
Yeah, okay. You're right. Everything has been a little too serious, and you disappearing Brownie isn't how to lighten things up. I'm gonna go sleep at my place. I still got a few weeks left after all.
Yeah? Why don't you check to see if Brownie is there?
So help me God, if when I decide to spend another night here, you better have found that bear.
She departed, too depleted, I had worn her out, to even slam the door shut, as it hung open and creaked a bit, as she disappeared down the hallway. I should have been basking winning that argument, right? But then the bed suddenly became a nightmare. I had been too hot and then too cold. It felt too limp, and as though I was sinking, and then suddenly felt lumpy and stiff in my pressure points. I smashed the buttons on the remote control like I was back playing PlayStation. I considered how the material, whatever it was, needed some kinetic energy to reset itself, and maybe in the absence of Sydney it was not getting that power. But a parade of tossing and turning did nothing to even out the experience. I tried Sydney's side and her remote control, but nothing. I looked for the battery compartment on the remotes, but I couldn't find where it was, or even a seam to crack open with a razor. So I ended up tossing them into the dark corner. I said to hell with it. Smashed a double dose of some antihistamines Sydney had left around. They were similar enough to my other meds I was prescribed for my insomnia anyway. I'm not sure if I fell asleep or just lingered in the sleep paralysis Netherlands. I dreamed of churning charcoal mushroom clouds and turbulent bitter black seas sandwiching the barren, colorless land on which my bombed-out condo crumbled. Grandma June was there. She said nothing. She was just there in the same washed-out grains and grays as the wasteland. It wasn't even Grandma June from my childhood, but the gaunt, frail, and faltering one I had seen in August, before she took her last stand in her last fall. There was another man there, too, younger than June, but still elderly. I couldn't place him in what he was wearing, but there was a bear at his feet, and that's how I suddenly recognized him, even though I couldn't. It was uncanny, but I just kind of realized it was Ralph, a younger Ralph, the one I never met, one I'm sure I've never seen. My brain warped trying to understand how I could envision and recognize someone I had never seen before, but here it was. I gasped awake from that place, feeling a bit like I had drank a half bottle of Jack to myself. I was confused, and I wasn't even sure I was awake. It was before the bitterness of yesterday touched my tongue. So when I reached over and I felt a slight lump on the side of my bed, I felt secure knowing Sydney was beside me. Sydney was at her place, my brain screamed as I flipped over frantically to spy what was next to me. I pressed my hand down on the bed and noticed my hand sunk deep, deeper than I had ever seen anything push into this bed before. For a moment I felt like I could feel a patchwork of holes in their outlines before the bed seemed to burp back into full form. I flopped over and found only the outline of a pillow in the dim light, where I thought I felt something warmer and bigger just a breath ago. I knew the bed was advertised to lean a bit in one direction or another, but this felt more like I was squeezing a balloon, pushed most of its air up on the opposite end. In my grogginess, I ripped off most of the covers, rose up and off the bed entirely. I staggered to the threshold, flipped on the light switch, slapped my arms to the side, and I found nothing terribly amiss. Just a mess from me flinging pillows and sheets about. In my grogginess, I shambled about, flailing the covers and pillows haphazardly back onto the bed. In my droopy-eyed fury, I snagged something soft and furry from the far side of the bed. I spared the object from the flurry of fabric and set it in the windowsill. With a new focus, I picked up my phone, snapped a photo of it, and posted it to Sydney with the message.
I found Brownie.
I shook my head that neither of us had seen it before that night. Then I wilted, as I had sent the message at 3:47, an hour and a half before she had to get up to go to the bakery. I hoped her phone was off or silenced. I even for once hoped she had me temporarily blocked, so that I didn't add disrupting her sleep to her list of charges against me. I put my head down, and what followed was a long series of intense dreams, followed by jarring injections of wakefulness, until about 5:20, when I gave up, went to the kitchen, and made an extra-large pot of extra-strong coffee. It started my day early. I got no reply from Sydney, and my news box alerts began to overflow with some kind of Middle East rocket attack. I drank deeply of my coffee and rubbed my eyes, resigned to the fact that today was going to be one of those days. But it was one of those days that I knew I could beat, because I was me. I put in the effort to move the ball in the rocket attack data. I emailed my boss and said I was still having heating issues at home and I needed to work another half day from here. My phone buzzed, and I was taken back by a sudden blast of heat wafting into the kitchen. I felt like somebody had suddenly opened up the oven. But I wasn't running the oven, or any other appliance other than the coffee maker. That couldn't make that kind of heat. It was a very uncomfortable, swelling, sweating, smelly kind of heat that turned from an awkward kind of bad sock smell to a fishy ammonia smell. I was forced to take down the seals on one of the windows just to let some fresh air in. Just like before, though, the strange heat and the smells didn't last long, but I didn't know where they were coming from. I didn't know how I was ending them. So I was running track around the apartment, sniffing for the origin of the smell, pressing my hand on every appliance, every surface high and low for the source of the heat. I heard a loud rush of air, followed by a loud groan. And then what sounded like the bedroom door slammed against the wall. This actually caused me to jump. I pinched myself to double check I was not asleep before my laptop at the kitchen table. I rounded the corner of the hall to the bedroom. Everything looked awry, but that's the way I left it. I couldn't tell if that loud sound was the door or not. It seemed to be not. At this point, I'm still halfway on my work and halfway chasing ghosts when I jump again at the sound of my phone buzzing loudly on the kitchen table. Swing around to the laptop when the air suddenly turned cold and I shut the window. And then I heard low stomach growling and rumbling from down the hallway again.
Okay.
I can't say I'm a big fan of Reddit. As far as sources go, it's fairly unreliable for my job, and I treat it that way for everything else. But I felt like it was time to troubleshoot that bed. Since their hotline was still inactive and their website offered very little else relevant to my issues, it was time to see what else was out there. I had a feeling that forums on the bed itself would be well manicured, but the UC company, or one of its affiliates, might be so raw that it was smelling like the fish I was smelling in the apartment. There wasn't much, actually. Only a few posts about how the range of their products are nautical, and some of them are tended to be food and preserved by cold, while others are decidedly not food and are preserved with a variety of chemicals. And in these forums, there was some concern about cross-contamination. I had the Rest Easy tab open, and for the first time in the trial period, I opened the recall item page and floated my cursor over it. I ran the numbers in my head. I lived here less than 2 months. Plenty of things were going on, and the correlation between the strange things going on and the bed were not proven, not even close. What was important was how much better the bed made me feel, save for last night. I shook my head. There was a higher chance of finding a Ouija board Sydney was playing with, trying to contact her dad, than something this bed was doing. So I closed the tab. My phone rang a third time, and this time I actually looked at the number. I didn't recognize it, so I hit end. I rubbed my eyes again, and then looked through my phone history and saw that it was the same number the last 3 calls. I started typing the number when my phone rang again, and this time it was a number I knew. It was Gigi, Sydney's friend, who worked with her at the bakery.
Sam! Sydney had a reaction. I think we got a contaminated shipment. Maybe peanut exposed? She didn't have her pen on her this morning.
Oh my. Oh, did they get there on time? Where did they...
The ambulance got here fast, and they took her, and I gave her your contact info. I don't know which hospital they're taking her to.
I lifted the phone from my ear, and Gigi went on. I searched the number that called me 3 times.
They took her to St. Luke's. I'm going to go there right now, and I'll let you know how she's doing.
I was calm, and with a surging sense of excitement, vindication, but maybe some shame and maybe some terror. This was it, wasn't it? You know, the whole my worst fear thing, it finally happened. You know, it's just, it was what it was. And now I was there with muscle memory, training really, holding steady like, you know, searching for a serial number on a tank. The same still frame with burning bodies in frame. This was the same thing. We always knew this was going to happen, right? Anyway, I drove there thinking about our fight and my sarcastic, ugly wake-up call to her. But I drove there with presence. And when I got there, it was a lot of hurry up and wait. I sat in a glass and metal waiting room. The entire facility reminded me of my sterile university office, and for some reason it gave me a lot of comfort. I was still waiting. Outwardly patient, but inwardly I thought about anaphylaxis, an immune response, creating multi-organ, multi-system shock resulting in rashes, rapid pulse, vomiting, low blood pressure, swelling of the tongue, inflamed airways, and if not treated, rapidly with an EpiPen to reverse the immune system's cellular destruction and fluid buildup, it resulted in permanent organ damage and probable death by collapse of the respiratory system. See how good I am at this? I can just kind of Wikipedia that out for you. Sydney tried to tell me in her own terms at one point. Your entire body, violently revolting, violently rioting against, attempting to expel a whisper in the breeze with a 50 megaton thermonuclear bomb, terminating itself in the process. Like I said, she met me halfway with those terms, and I write it here, like it was in my head then, like I'm reading a Wikipedia article. Calm, smooth, collected, like how I approached my work. As I sat there, admittedly growing in temperature, sweating a bit, fidgeting in my own reaction, I did have a moment of reflection of how different Sydney and I really were. Her body literally demanded a puritanical, pyrrhic purity at literally the first sign of a stressing agent. I, on the other hand, fixated myself into a kind of stasis hibernation, but I was collecting something on me all the time, weighing down my mind slowly, killing me softly with every night I didn't sleep, and every time that it kept me from eating, from enjoying the breath in my lungs that I took for granted, when she couldn't rely on it. I didn't know what it all meant when it crossed my mind that maybe it wouldn't even matter now that something deep inside me spurred me out of my seat and back to the nurse's counter to ask about Sydney. I'd been there 4 hours, and I'd barely registered it. I had to wait another hour before I was informed her condition was upgraded to moderate, but would need overnight observation. I was told she was lucky, and she could receive visitors finally. I stepped in. She was tethered to a few IVs and sensors. Her face looked a little red and blotchy. Her left eye could not fully open, but otherwise she seemed okay. I had reverberations of my last visit with June as I walked in. Oh, this talk of beds. This was the last one I'd want to sleep in. I struggled to lean in. A gentle hug as she strained to connect from the bed.
I'm so glad you were okay. I heard you were lucky.
Better lucky than good. I saw your text about Brownie. Did you bring him?
Oh, no. It hadn't occurred to me.
I pulled a chair from the side close to the bed.
It's okay. I was wondering if you could go back and get him for me before they stop taking visitors for the night.
Of course. Anything.
Thank you. I have something else I'd like you to do.
Sure. I'm guessing you'd like to call Gigi and let her know you're okay. And
You've got to do the sage smudging in that place.
I flopped back into the chair and tapped the legs with all my fingers, 3 or 4 times while exhaling.
Okay, we've been through this before. I don't believe in this stuff in particular, but when you're well, if you want to do it, that's fine.
The weird stuff going on in the apartment and my weird dreams. It's all because we're holding on to a piece of lost family and it's manifesting itself there. It came to me as I lay dying. Please, you have to do this before I come back.
I threw my head back in the chair and exhaled loudly. At least it was better than her trying to get to leave my decent job again. The ghosts, either in the form of the winter's effects on the building or the delirium in her head from nearly being asphyxiated, would pass. Now was not the time to make some kind of philosophical stand on this whole ghost business.
Okay. Can do that.
You will do that?
Yes, I will do that.
Hey, I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad you're here.
You're not going to do it, are you?
Honestly, no.
Fine. I'll do it when I get out of here.
That's fine.
Everything is fine with you. Is there ever anything right with you lately?
Sounds like that bothers you more than it bothers me, and I don't get that.
Yeah, that makes me sound like you, doesn't it?
You almost died. Why are we fighting here?
Because I know what it's like to fight for my life, and I feel like I'm fighting for both of ours sometimes.
I could say the same thing.
Oh?
I made you that pouch that clips onto your jeans and disguises your EpiPen. Why don't you ever keep it on you like you're supposed to?
I don't know.
Well, it's never a bad time to start a good habit. I'm going to go get Brownie. You want anything else?
A beer?
See you soon.
The exhilaration of being right about all of this and just having the foresight of seeing this coming had finally starting to wind down by the time I got back to the condo. I was getting tired. The elevator was broken again, so I was double tired by the time I pulled myself up the final step and leaned against my door for a second to rest. The moment I touched the doorknob, I felt an unease. I felt a little nauseous and weaker than even I had been a moment ago. I turned the key and the knob and pushed in, thinking all I needed was some more coffee. And then to grab that stuffed animal and get back there. And then come back here and finally do what I needed to do. Sleep. I stepped through the door, and the air, thick, hot, humid, tinged with ammonia again. I resigned myself to calling the landlord tomorrow to get somebody out here to figure this out. I cracked the window again and started to make another cup of coffee for myself. I had some work emails backed up, but I just shut my laptop and sat in silence. Then came a loud sucking sound that at first I thought was coming from the coffee machine, but then I realized it was coming from down the hallway again. I wondered for a second if I should just do the sage thing myself at this point, so I could move on to the part where I could laugh at her and just figure out how to get a decent plumber out here. I pushed the door to the bedroom open, and in the shadow of the hallway light and the darkness of the room, I thought I saw it. The bed was a big lump. A human-shaped outline of a lump under the strewn covers. It was subtle, like someone had taken a gingerbread man cookie cutter on the dough, but didn't pop it out yet. I turned the lights on, and it was gone. I blinked a few times. I didn't know what to say or what I had seen. I hesitated, but I slowly touched the bed and pushed down on it a few times. Admittedly, this one time, this made my heart jump a bit. I shook my head, realizing it maybe was a delayed command from earlier. But I stood guarded, my eyes locked on the bed, as I slunk around the far side to grab Brownie off the windowsill. There was some dirty condensation under the bear that I thought was weird, but helped underscore I needed to plastic wrap this window next. My heart jumped again as the coffee machine gurgled in the kitchen. I shut off the coffee pot and left. When I got back to the hospital, I just missed the end of visiting hours for that wing, so I asked the nurse to drop Brownie off to Sydney. She texted me that she got it, with a kissy face emoji. I put my phone away, took it back out, pushed the kissy face emoji, put it back in my pocket, and then finally sent it. I couldn't wait to try to sleep. I woke up, feeling refreshed. Intense dreams flickered in and out of my memory as the gray night brightened to a gray morning. I had this dream of little worms crawling up and around my face, through my nose and ears and mouth into my brain. One by one they went black, swelled with ooze, and then carried it away into the soil. The soil turned dry and ashen. That crumbled into 4 pieces and fled into the corners of my vision, into nothing. And then I dropped into oblivion. Something exploded somewhere that morning, but that's okay. It was Saturday, and I picked Sydney up from the hospital. She had a new EpiPen on her, even though she had a bunch between the carrier I had given her and the ones at her apartment, and probably one buried in mine somewhere. She looked like she had a poise and purpose to her, even though her face was blotchy, her eyes worn down. I took her to her old place, where she showered, changed clothes, and then she started rummaging through her disorganized closet for something.
I'm gonna do this for you.
She insisted while unpacking a bundle of sage from a tie-dyed box in her closet. And then she made a show of clipping on her EpiPen holster to me.
How stylish. Come on, let's get to your place.
She sparked up my gas stove and ignited one end of the sage like a cigar, and blew out the weak flame before tracing the perimeter of the entire apartment, and then tracing what she said was the names of the deceased in the air. June and Ralph.
I know that I get a lot of feelings sometimes, but lately my dreams have been terrible. Everything's been terrible, and then almost dying, it's like I saw something that needed to be sent away. Thank you. Goodbye.
Well, thank you.
No, thank you. You know, there's one more thing we need to test out on that bed before we decide to keep it.
Are you sure you're good to go?
Yeah, come with me.
1,000,000 thoughts, and no thoughts, fluttered through me, and for some reason it struck me that I had not showered in a few days, and she just did. I kissed her. Our tongues danced together like butterflies in a summer breeze.
Let me clean up a minute.
Don't take too long.
She squeezed me, she said, taking off her sweater and undershirt, revealing a red bra and her fit form before heading down the hall to the bedroom. I showered off in a mad dash. I was still dripping. I threw a towel around my waist so there was something for her to take off as well. I almost slipped on the wood boards of the hall as I pushed open the bedroom door. In the strained light of the room, I couldn't tell exactly what I was seeing at first. I was just seeing Sydney's legs kicking violently into the air on the bed, but her torso, her neck, her face were somehow fused into a vortex of blankets, sunken into the mattress. The entire mattress started to undulate on his frame, releasing violent hisses, gulps, and gurgles, and burps as it banged against the steel pivots and parts against the floor. Sydney kicked and twisted as I stood in horror, uncertain, unsure what to do as she suddenly was able to twist herself up, and her face appeared out of the dark, bile-colored yellow and ashen blue of the mattress. Out through the maelstrom of blankets, she took a huge gasp of breath and barely eked out
Help me!
as it swallowed her up again to her legs. The mattress swelled out of its frame, taking up more of the room, expanding in all directions except towards me. The mattress compressed and expanded and hissed and growled as it tried to totally swallow her up, from the tip of her nose down to her toes. She punched one arm and flailed it in the air. I don't know, shot through my head as she threw herself to the side, as it had most of her now, and she had been struggling for however long, maybe since I stepped into the shower. She reached for her EpiPen on her side. The pouch fell off of her and to the bed, and it bounced off, and it rolled to my feet. I had this sudden, unorthodox hunch, this bolt of lightning shot through my brain. I pried the cap up and exposed the point with the automatic plunger, and in a back and forth in my mind, I just jabbed it. I jabbed the mattress with the pen. I felt the rattle of the internal spring vibrate through my hand, knowing the device triggered successfully, injecting the mattress with the adrenaline shot. The mattress stretched wide, thin, turned translucent, appeared to be riddled with holes. It popped open, knocking me down. The whole thing seemed to contract, and then suddenly my ears popped as the bed violently exploded, all of the air that had soaked up. I saw Sydney fall out of its grip, banging her elbow against the steel bed frame as she fell to the carpet, where she laid flat, visibly in pain. The mattress snapped back to a square with a vaguely humanoid outline, to a quarter of its original king size. It bloated again, and then bound through the air like a rubber band snapped at its breaking point. It bounced off of the wall with a thud, and then ping-ponged through the hallway as I pursued it. It shrunk again, and shot itself through the tiny crack in the kitchen window. I stood there, and watched, as it made one last bounce on the sands of the beach, before plunging into the cloudy ocean, vanishing out of sight. Little bits of liquid pooled up in its trail in the hall, in the kitchen, in the bed. They pooled up and turned into little streamers of black, gelatinous sludge that smelled terrible. It seemed to boil away on their own, leaving only a fine bit of black coffee grounds like grains in their place. Sydney was mostly dressed at this point, clutching her elbow at the end of my hallway near the door. She was gasping. She looked like she endured 4 anaphylactic shocks, and all that she could say was,
Later!
And then walked out, slamming the door. It kind of felt like one of those days, and I just sat down. There was nothing to chase. There was nothing to say. That was a week ago. I tried texting, I tried calling, I tried knocking on her door, I tried flowers. I didn't hear anything from her, and then I kind of realized she had blocked me entirely. I considered going down to the bakery and seeing her there, but my mind turned against that idea, at least in the short term. Hopefully, she could get over that shock of what had happened, and she'd find the time to talk to me like an adult. We had a lot to talk about. Outside of the jeopardy of our relationship there was certainly the matter of the 90-day trial of the mattress I was no longer in possession of, and that would soon be up. And then I'd be paying a lot of money for nothing, for something that I couldn't even say had tried to eat my girlfriend and then jumped into the ocean, because I wouldn't believe me. I searched the website for a way to break that contract, and eventually I was able to follow down a path to return the mattress and cancel my automatic payment as an unsatisfied customer. To my dismay, when I reached the bottom of how to reclaim the mattress, there were 3 options. Pick up at my current address on file, or pick up at a new address, or other. I picked other. My computer froze as a new screen on a 5-second timer appeared. The company simply had a statement. It said, "We understand that our product is not intended for everyone. Your invoice will be shredded and your card on file will be deleted. Better luck with a different product." The UC logo was watermarked across the screen. Couldn't get a screenshot of it. I was too baffled to get a shot of it with my phone. And even if I did, it's not like it would have proven any of this anyway. With one problem solved, later that day I got a call from Gigi.
Sydney will send you a letter when she's ready, but that it's over. Yeah, to accept that. I'll come to help box up her stuff and take it to her.
So, I'm slowly typing this up on my couch in the middle of another sleepless night. And so for the purposes of your satisfaction, I guess I'll paraphrase her letter to you.
When I laid down on that bed the first time, I saw nightmares. And then that day we came back from the hospital, I laid down on that bed and saw your spirit, or maybe you'd prefer your mind, your brain. I'm now sure it's the part of your mind where your jaw pools and rots and turns you into spiritual landfill, poisoning you from the inside out, even as you wear a mask to hide it, pretending like it doesn't also affect others. I can't make you quit for me. I tried that. I need you to quit for you, but I don't think you ever will, and I can't let myself be wrung out on and just there for whenever you feel like you can be there for us. I love you, but I need you to love you too. Goodbye.
I accepted it. This was always going to be this way anyway. It's just how things work when you're like this. When you're good at something. When no one appreciates you for it. Sydney isn't coming back. But that bed. I figure it was taken from the unknown depths of the ocean. It was some kind of organism, a live sponge of some unknown origin. If I were to take a guess, at least. It was a sponge that could soak up the mental crap building up in my brain. And if it got too inundated, it would wring out on somebody else. Or it would physically manifest it away in weird smells and... I mean, for as much as Sydney's is into cleanses and psyches and spirits and all that stuff. I'm surprised she didn't see what it was and how useful it was. I'm surprised she wasn't more into it. Seemed right up her alley with the smudging BS anyway. Anyway, as long as I don't shoot this sponge full of adrenaline and I can find someone, anyone, to periodically sleep here, I'll be good. And the world will be better for it. It's worth it to make the world better. I make the world better by what I do. And if I have to wring that out on somebody every now and then, so be it. Maybe for the sake of this review, I shouldn't be telling you the part, but what the hell. I see you, and now you see me. P.S. The remotes are fake. I got back on to the Rest Easy website. I put in a different credit card number, and I had a new bed shipped to the vacant unit in my complex on another 90-day free trial. Oh, and as for my final rating.
Honestly, I hadn't slept that carefree in years. 5 out of 5 stars.